Welcome back to Artibus. Today we have a really short and probably quite crappy video. I'm currently at home for Christmas and don't really have my full setup. Usually I'd have my big microphone, my webcam and my usual computer, but right now I just have two makeshift monitors, my headset, an old Dell keyboard, so it is quite minimalistic, but I'm just getting by doing a lot of things with my family for Christmas and obviously spending a little bit of time here and there on the YouTube stuff. So I've been working a little bit on Artibus and also Celesti Light the last couple of days, and I have actually come to a round stop. A round stop, is that a term I just invented out of nowhere? Who knows? This is how we go. But I just came to a finishing point there with version 0.3 for Artibus, so I'm going to go ahead and make a video and release it and have fun. So yeah. Now this was supposed to be the SBS update, which was the Excalibur's Better Sleeping update. Obviously the first update was the SGT update, where we ported features from SGT. The second one was where we ported features from SMC, the mob converter, and this was supposed to be the update where we ported features from SBS. Instead, what we're going to do is kind of port the features from SBS in two updates, and I've also thrown in a loads of other stuff in today's update as well, which is just stuff that I've wanted to do and just figured out at the time, and I'm really happy with. So first of all, the day duration extender system has been introduced to the game. If you do function settings, you can see a number of different settings appear on the screen. So first of all, you can toggle the daytime extender, and you can also toggle the one-player sleep system. So by default, the daytime extender will actually be set to false. When you first load the data pack, this will be turned off. And again, the reason for that is because by default it will extend the duration of each day from 10 minutes to 90 minutes, which is a huge change. So essentially, because of the fact that it changes so drastically, I've made it so that it's off by default, with the hopes that players will simply know that it's off and simply enable it if they want to use it. I said simply way too many times there. If we type extender true, then you see we get this nice new text which has been all formatted nicely. So the daytime duration extender has been enabled. Click here to toggle the number of players required to sleep, and click here to adjust the daytime duration. So if I click this first one here, you can see we get function settings toggle one player sleep. So that just simply references the function that we saw before when we typed out settings, and that will enable and disable the one player sleep system, which again only works if you have the daytime duration extender enabled. When 1.17 gets updated more, or actually, I mean, we could really just start doing Artibus stuff in 1.17, to be honest. I mean, that would be fine. We'll stick to stable versions. So when Artibus is available for 1.17, we're actually going to make use of the new command, which basically does the percentage of players required to sleep. Because for those of you that aren't up to date with the 1.17 updates, they recently introduced a new game rule where you can just simply specify the number of players or the percentage of players required to sleep to pass the night. So effectively, what everyone has already done in a mod pack, data pack, plugin already a million times over, they've just simply made it a game rule now, so you can do it much more easily. Now I kind of realized that game rule would actually be really helpful for for SBS or the extended daytime module, and unfortunately it's not, because we have a completely custom system required to actually make the daytime extender pass the night, and it's quite a bit more complicated than you realize. I've written it 3 times now. I wrote it initially in SBS version 1, and then I wrote it again in SBS version 2.0, and it was much more efficient and much better, and it just simply wasn't broken. And this time I've written it again, and again it's just slightly more efficient, slightly less complicated, and it just works really nicely. So we also have toggle to adjust the daytime duration. So if you click here, this time you don't get suggested a function, you get an auto-filled command, and this command is scoreboard players set time_scale Artibus settings 9. Now that 9 is the default value, and that extends the daytime from 10 minutes to 90 minutes. So again, if you wanted to make it 50 minutes, you set it to 5, or if you wanted to make it 6 hours as opposed to 3 hours, you could set it to 18 as opposed to 9. So basically 9 is the default value because that's the value that I think that it should be. I think that's the value it works nicely at. If you have it any less than 9, you do sometimes get a bit of stuttering in the skybox because the skybox is being updated too infrequently. So I would recommend having it at 9 at a very minimum. If you wanted it to be a server side thing where it's a complete 24-hour cycle, then you can actually set it to 72, in which case a day will be 12 hours long and a night will also be 12 hours long as well. So that's kind of like the big boy value there. So yeah, 9 by default though. So once the module has been enabled, you'll see the sun actually does very slowly tick across the sky, just like that. It is moving slightly, I promise. But yeah, I really like this. I think it's a really cool feature. I like the idea that the daytime could be extended quite massively, because I do think the days pass too quickly in Minecraft, to be honest. For like late game players who want to do more creative stuff, I feel like a longer daytime duration is much more appreciated. Now, just a quick note: we haven't yet re-added the phantom spawning mechanic from SBS. So where phantoms would spawn at players when they haven't slept for a number of days. Obviously, the phantom spawning mechanic doesn't really work with SBS because the phantom spawning mechanic is based not on how many days you've been asleep, but not how many days that you've not slept for, but how many minutes that you've not slept for. So of course, usually what happens in game is when you haven't slept for about 2 or 3 days, phantoms will spawn and try and attack you. Obviously, every single time the sun goes down in SBS, you've already been awake for the equivalent of like 4/5 Minecraft days. So phantoms are going to be spawning really frequently from the get-go, and they spawn a lot because again, usually you would have like 2 or 3 opportunities for phantoms to spawn throughout the night. This time you have a lot more opportunities because the night time lasts just as long as the day. So basically, the phantom spawning mechanic doesn't work well with SPS at all. I discovered that the hard way. So basically, the do insomnia game rule is extremely helpful for us because it basically just means that we can disable phantoms entirely and spawn them in a custom way. Now, currently, if you have the daytime duration extender enabled, it will simply disable phantom spawning entirely. But obviously, what we then need to do is come up with a system which manually re-adds phantoms using a much more sensible system given the circumstances. So what I'm currently planning on doing, because I haven't actually done it yet, currently phantoms are just not in the pack or in the game at all if you have this installed. Phantoms will basically spawn a distance away from you and then travel to your location, which I think could look really cool for other players when you see them like going across the sky really fast, like travel to a player. I think that would look really cool. And then of course they swoop down and attack you and everything else. But I'm also thinking for every single wave of phantoms that gets spawned in, they would get larger and stronger and have more health. Now we're going to do that using attributes, so it's going to be really cool using the new system. But also in addition to that, we're also going to have it so that phantoms will spawn based on how many days you've not slept for. So if you've not slept for 0 days, in other words, if it's just your first night time, then let's say phantoms will spawn at the equivalent of like 3 a.m. because by 3 a.m. you should really be in bed. So we'll have phantoms spawn once. But if you haven't been in bed for 2 days, then phantoms will spawn at 3 a.m. and also, I don't know, 1 a.m. So we'll come up with a new system basically where they spawn at different points during the nights based on how many days you've not slept for, and I think we could do something really cool with that, but it's not been implemented just yet, so we'll get to that in v0.4 for sure. So moving on from that, we have a number of new features that have been introduced in today's update which are not related to SBS in any way, and yeah, that's a few things to do with loot tables. So first of all, chickens, rabbits and pigs have all had their loot tables adjusted, and I'll explain this in more detail in just a moment. So first of all, chickens will always now drop 1 chicken. The way this works in regular Minecraft is chickens will always drop 1 chicken, but if you have looting, you can get anywhere from 1 to 4 chickens based on the level of looting. So if you have looting 3, you can actually get 4 chicken from a single chicken, which is ridiculous. Obviously the item for this is a whole chicken. It has 2 legs, chicken breast, it's all there. Please don't demonetize me for saying breast, YouTube. But yeah, you can see here we have raw chicken. Why would you drop 4 raw chicken? I get it, it's to be balanced, obviously, and we want to get a lot of food from chickens, but that's really dumb. So chickens don't, no. Chickens are the only thing in the game that can really be automatically farmed in terms of like meat food. So I'm perfectly happy with chickens being a little bit more underpowered, since chicken farms are still very beneficial and very desirable. So I think I hardly think this change is gonna really do anything, because obviously the only way that would work before is if you had a fox with a looting sword. You can still do that obviously, but it just won't give you any additional chicken. We've also changed the rabbit loot table. Rabbits will now always drop 1 raw rabbit. Now rabbits already had an adjusted, look at that. Rabbits already had an adjusted loot table in the past update, which was to give them a 1 rabbit hide every time, which is to be in sync with things like horses and donkeys and mules and cows always dropping 1 leather, because of course the icon for the leather looks like the animal's skin drawn out like that, as you can see. So basically chickens now have a really predictable loot table. They will always drop 1 rabbit, 1 hide, and have a 10% chance of dropping a rabbit's foot, which is normal in vanilla. And finally, pigs have a slightly lower chance to drop pork chops. Now this is an interesting one. Initially what I thought of doing recently was making it so that pigs had a chance of dropping more pork chops than cows, and my logic was to make it so that cows and pigs were like arguably on the same level in terms of viability. Because right now, if you want to make a farm for either beef or pork, you make a cow farm, because cows drop leather and that's it. And it's easier to get wheat early game as well than it is to get carrots, for example. So I really don't understand why you would ever make a pig farm over a cow farm. There's literally no reason to do it. And you can also now just make hoglin farms in the Nether, which are incredibly easy to set up, and they will give you a lot more cooked pork chops than any pig farm. So basically, pigs are kind of useless now, in my opinion. I think they've become pretty crap. It's a bit weird that they eat carrots because, again, carrots are not as easy to get as like anything else, but there are so many inconsistencies in Minecraft. Let's not start on that for now. So what we've done instead is make it so that pigs are actually now really overpowered, especially early game. If you take a pig, well, if you take two pigs and breed them, let me show you. If you take 2 pigs and breed them, then they will have multiple babas, which is really helpful. I love this. I think this is really cool. So this is an extension of the mob converter aspect of the game. What this basically does is every time a baby pig is spawned into the world, and this uses predicate is baby true to make this work really efficiently, then it will basically just run a randomizer, which uses a new system that I've been recently learning, which is called LCG. I cannot remember what the acronym stands for, but it's cool. You should Google it, I guess. And yeah, basically every time it finds a new baby pig in world, it will attempt to spawn anywhere from 1 to 3 additional baby piglets afterwards. It's really cool. We can simulate this quickly by just spawning a pig on a pig. So you can see we got 2 again there. We'll see if we can go for a different size litter. 2 again. 2 is the most common, obviously, because that's like the most balanced way of doing it. But we will occasionally get 1 or 3. That was just 1 that time. That was 2 again. Let's see, you got 2. I got 3 that time. Look at that. So 3 baby piglets. So you can actually get a lot more pork now from breeding pigs than you can cows. Basically, the logic there is that obviously cows are really good for farming beef and leather, and you will now get a really consistent amount of leather and a good amount of beef every time you kill a cow. But pigs will now drop slightly less pork chops because it balances out this new aspect, which would be insanely overpowered if it was the same as vanilla. But basically, every time you breed pigs, you will get a lot more pigs. There is still a chance that you can only get 1 piglet from breeding 2 pigs together, because that's just how the RNG system should work, in my opinion. But most of the time you will get more, so you will generally get 2 or 3, and you will rarely get 4 baby piglets every time you breed pigs as well. So it's really cool. So pigs are kind of broken now, so breed pigs and get loads of pork chops, I guess. Rabbits also have a very similar thing. Rabbits will have big litters as well, as rabbits do. So you can see there we've got 3 rabbits from a litter. We've got 3 again. We've got 4. Rabbits are a nightmare now, so every time you breed rabbits, you're just gonna get hundreds, basically. But who the fuck breeds rabbits in this game? You know, like they're not even helpful for anything. Unless you want leather, I guess. Like you could actually make a leather farm out of this. Really, holy shit, you could make a really good leather farm out of this. Oh no. Oh no. Well, hopefully someone will figure out some way to abuse that so I can nerf it in the future, but who fucking knows. So anyway, that's about it for Artibus. We have one final thing which I forgot to mention because I'm a big dum-dum. We also have a new crafting recipe which is for green dye. So there you go, blue dye plus yellow dye equals 2 green dye. Because, yeah, that doesn't exist in vanilla for some reason, so there it is. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I certainly didn't. I will see you in 2022 for a video where I will end it saying I will see you in 2021. Thanks for watching, and bye.